Hey, it's Robbie Falk from 247 Sports and the Starkville Daily News, live or recorded here from my backyard. Just got in from Memphis, Tennessee. I'm back in Mississippi, and sorry if you hear some cars. I just decided it was a good day today to sit outside on the back porch and discuss some Mississippi State sports. So was going to kind of break down what I saw at the Liberty Bowl on Tuesday night, and a day after kind of collected my thoughts, and now I'm kind of thinking a little more clearly than I was last night when I saw things live. So going to talk a little bit about what we saw last night, what to expect from Mississippi State moving forward under Mike Leach, and kind of the state of the program now that the season is over for Mississippi State. Bulldogs end the season 7-6. A lot of people expected them to be anywhere from around 6 or 7 wins, so this wasn't entirely different than what a lot of people believe, but it's the way the season ended that has a lot of people upset that are Mississippi State fans. So, and understandably so. Mississippi State could have played significantly better, especially in the last 2 ball games, and had some games there late, or really all season, that were in their grasp, but they just couldn't quite get. And those are games that Mississippi State really needs to win next year. Vital season for Mike Leach in year 3, and we'll discuss a little bit more about that as we go through this YouTube talk here. I first want to thank everybody that has subscribed to my channel. I ask you, if you aren't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that right now. You'll be updated on any videos that I post, and when I'm going live on YouTube, I usually do a live show once a week. Sometimes I don't do it every single week, but usually do that to get fans involved. I want to talk to you guys, hear your thoughts on Mississippi State sports, get some questions from you as well if you have any questions. I really like to get you guys involved and to talk to you guys and beat you guys. So if you're not subscribed, go ahead and do that right now. Go check out some of my other videos as well. I got a lot of press conferences. We have the press conference from Tuesday night with Mike Leach, and also Will Rogers and Fred Peters, and some good thoughts in there from Leach and the players about how the season went, what went wrong for them on Tuesday. So go check that out. Have some other archived videos where we talked recruiting. We talked about Mississippi State sports and kind of where it is, so make sure you go look at those videos as well. But as far as last night, Mississippi State comes in that ball game against Texas Tech. Not really heavy favorites, but a touchdown favorite. I mean, they were predicted by most to win that ball game, and to win it by anywhere from 7 to 8 points. So Mississippi State was considered a favorite by just about everybody. I don't think there were many people that picked Texas Tech to win that ball game, but I thought things really started to shift towards Texas Tech pregame when the news started to come out that Mississippi State was going to be missing several players in the 2 deep. And that was, in my opinion, the difference in the ball game. I thought Mississippi State could be better, and they could have played better in that game, but the difference in the game really for me was the fact that State did not have a full arsenal of players. And I hate to make that excuse. They still had the players available on the offensive side of the ball to be better. Were they good enough to win that ball game? That's questionable, but I think they were still good enough to win that game. But it didn't make things any easier for them that they had all those players out on the defensive side of the ball, especially. We knew about Charles Cross at left tackle. We knew he was going to be out. We knew Martin Emerson was going to be out at cornerback. Both of those guys opted out pre-bowl, and they have not taken part in bowl practices. Those 2 guys are preparing. They said they're preparing for the NFL draft, but nobody is really preparing for the NFL draft right now. All that is basically players wanting to make sure they don't get injured in that final game. And I wish players would use that more than preparing for the draft, because I don't think a lot of these guys are doing a whole lot of preparation right now. They might be doing a little training. Nobody's going to the combine. Nobody's doing anything like that. Other than the fact they might be doing some training, which is something they could do in the bowl. So I really wish they would change that, but that's neither here nor there. It's their decision to make, and Mississippi State knew they were going to be out. We knew Aaron Burley was going to be out because he transferred to Michigan State. We knew Malik Heath was going to be out because he was injured in a car wreck. Other than that, we felt like everybody would be available with the exception, too, of kicker Brandon Ruiz, who's been out for several weeks with an injury. Things really took a turn for Mississippi State while they were in Memphis. I'm told they had several players start to test positive for COVID, and they have contact tracing as well. I'm not aware of anybody being badly sick or anything like that, but the protocols being what they are right now, and several teams opting out of the bowl games because of it, Mississippi State was hit as well, and they were hit extremely hard, especially on the defensive line and safety. 3 of the top 4 defensive ends out with COVID. Jaden Crumity and Randy Charlton, which are your 2 starters at ends, and technically Crumity's considered a defensive tackle, but he's basically playing a defensive end in that 3-man front. So you have your 2 starters right there, and then Jack Harris was also out, which I think he's been injured for several weeks too, so they haven't really been playing him as much. DeMonte Russell's been getting a lot of snaps. He started at the defensive tackle spot. Nathan Pickering actually slid over to where Randy Charlton usually is, and you had a defensive tackle playing defensive end. So Mississippi State was hamstrung there already just right off the bat, and then DeMonte Russell was in and out with some injuries throughout the game. Aaron Odom was also out, another reserve defensive lineman. So you're playing DeMonte Russell, you're playing Javon Banks, who's not played a ton this season. King Ani came in the ball game and played some. It was just a mess on the defensive line, and I thought those guys played really hard considering Cameron Young had a really good game again. Just an outstanding year for him at nose tackle. I thought he was really good this season. And those guys did the best they could. At linebacker, you didn't have Aaron Brule, so you had Jet Johnson and Nathaniel Watson. They played well. But other than that, just not a whole lot of depth at that position. Deshaun Page got a lot of playing time in the ball game. So Mississippi State really needs some reinforcements there at linebacker, and I think they will have that next year, but they just weren't ready. Then in the defensive backfield, with Martin Emerson out, you had DeCamerion Richardson back there, who's played a lot this year at cornerback, but he got burned a couple of times. Emmanuel Forbes had a really good game at corner, but obviously very thin at that cornerback spot. And safety was hit extremely hard. 3 guys in the 2 deep out with starters Jalen Green. Sean Preston started a few times this year. He was out for the game. And Dylan Lawrence, a second-string safety, was out. And then another reserve, and Kyle Cass was out. So Corey Ellington, a true freshman, was getting his first start at safety. And, you're just asking a lot of a true freshman to come out there and perform in the bowl game. But I thought Corey Ellington played well. He was second on the team in tackles. I think he had 8 tackles or something like that. Fred Peters played pretty well in his final game. He was defensive MVP for Mississippi State with 12 tackles. And, they just did the best that they could. They gave up a huge opening drive where Texas Tech just gashed them right down the field, 80-yard drive for a touchdown. Second drive was much of the same, but they were able to kind of buckle down inside the red zone and get a stop and hold them to a field goal. And I thought from there the defense really played well the rest of the half. They had, I think, 3 straight possessions where they forced a punt or got a turnover on downs. And then late in the half, Austin Williams muffs a punt at the 10-yard line, and they got the ball at the 10 with 30 seconds left. State held them to a field goal there. The defense did everything it had to do in the first half. They gave up 13 points. Considering where they were depth-wise, I thought that was more than enough for Mississippi State to stay in that ball game and even take a lead. But the offense just never got it done. And on the offensive side of the ball, with the injuries or opt-outs, Charles Cross opted out, of course, and then you had starting right tackle Scott Lashley out with COVID. You had Malik Heath, of course, out, but that was it. The offense was pretty much intact. Will Rogers was there. You still had 3 starters on the offensive line that were there. You had the majority of your wide receivers. You had your 2 running backs. Mississippi State just couldn't do anything on offense. And it kind of translated from the Ole Miss game into this one, where the first half they had all these opportunities, the defense is holding their own, and they just couldn't get anything done. The first possession, they come out, they might have got a first down, and that's it. They punt the ball away. They're down 10-0 before their offense really gets off the ground. They did drive down the field after they went down 10-0, got a big touchdown pass from Will Rogers to Ra Thomas, and then they get a 3-and-out from the defense, and you're thinking the momentum's really shifting towards Mississippi State here. But a lot like the last time they went to Memphis, the defense was kind of getting the job done. The offense wasn't able to take advantage. And it happened the same way against Ole Miss. You have a 10-7 ball game or whatever it was in that game, and you had these opportunities in the first half to score touchdowns, and you just couldn't do it. That killed Mississippi State because in the second half, it just was it was all Texas Tech. Mississippi State still did nothing on offense, and the defense eventually gave in because they just didn't have the bodies. And Texas Tech outscored them 21-0 in the second half. It was just a really disappointing ball game for Mississippi State, their worst offensive performance of the year. Will Rogers had 290 yards passing. He completed 60% of his passes. The rushing attack, when they ran the football, was solid. I think they had over 60 yards from Dylan Johnson, who I thought was the player of the game for Mississippi State. He had over 80 yards of total offense on 12 touches. He really came out and played well, but that was about it for the Bulldogs. They just didn't have enough players come in and step up and make plays. And I think a lot of that falls on coaching for not having the guys prepared to come out and be fired up in this game. A lot of it comes with the players. I mean, they have to pull their weight too. And it just felt like Texas Tech wanted this ball game more. Mississippi State was the more talented team, even with the injuries. And I know the depth on defense just wasn't there for the Bulldogs, but State still had the offensive pieces in place to do more than 7 points and over 300 yards of offense. And it was a continuation of Mississippi State's performances in bowls offensively since 2017. Since that game when Mississippi State beat Louisville with Keaton Thompson at quarterback and Greg Knox taking over for Dan Mullen's interim head coach, since that ball game, State's been putrid on offense. I mean, they haven't had over 400 yards in the last 4 bowl games, and they're 1-3 in those games. So I apologize for these trucks in the background. I didn't know it was going to be the time of day where these trucks are just rolling through here. But State's got to be better on offense, and they got to attack these bowl games better too. I feel like the State needs to be better in these games because this was an important ball game for Mississippi State. I mean, some of these games, I do kind of fall in line with some other people that think that some of these bowl games are meaningless, and people don't want to hear that. But you look at some of these games, 6-6 teams, and there's 1,500 people in the stands. I mean, there's just not a whole lot that you can take away from a few of these games. And I think some of the players and coaches have the same mindset. I mean, the SEC's 0-4 right now in bowls. And a lot of these games, have just been complete duds by SEC teams. I mean, Auburn yesterday losing to Houston. Missouri has already lost their bowl game. Texas A&M opted out of theirs, and I'm pretty sure they could have played. So, I mean, in one hand I say that, in another hand I say, Mississippi State could have very easily opted out of their game. I don't have the numbers on me, but I can almost guarantee that Mississippi State had more players available, or UCLA had more players available for their bowl game in the Holiday Bowl than Mississippi State did. And UCLA reports are surfacing that they asked the players if they wanted to play or not and things like that. They polled the players. Mississippi State went out there and played the game, and you have to give them credit for that. And that might be the only positive that you can really take away from this ball game is Mississippi State did not give up. They didn't quit. And I think there's something to be said about that. The fact that Mike Leach was going to play with his guys. These are my guys I'm going to play. He did that last year against Georgia. He did it against Ole Miss as well. And I can respect that. I really can respect that. And I can respect these players that, especially the seniors, that decide to stick it out and decide to play with their team. I respect the players that make the decision not to opt out, or I respect the players that make the decision to opt out and not to play the bowl game. That's their decision. And if they feel like it's the best thing for them and their NFL future, who am I to tell them that they shouldn't have that mindset? But I really respect the ones that want to finish the job with their team. And for the players that went out there on Tuesday, played this ball game, knowing that they had a depleted roster and things like that, I do respect that for Mississippi State. But it wasn't a good ending to the year. They ended the year 7-6. it looks a lot different if they end at 8-5. I mean, going into the offseason with 8 wins, you've won 5 out of the last 6. Is that right? I think 4 or 5 out of the last, maybe 4 out of 6, 5 out of 7, something like that. You've ended the year pretty strong here on the back half of the schedule. You feel really good about your offense. You're returning all these guys on the defensive side of the ball too. You feel really good going in the offseason. Your quarterback's coming into his 3rd year. He's broken every single passing record in a single season in Mississippi State history. You look like you're going to have the bulk of your offense back. I mean, you feel really, really good. And instead, now you go in there with a sour taste in your mouth. And I still think that fans should be excited about Mississippi State moving forward, because I'm not one of those guys that I'm not going to let this game completely define what I think Mississippi State is moving forward under Mike Leach. I think it would be foolish to not accept the fact that all those players being out yesterday meant something in this game. I also think it would be foolish to not accept the fact that Mississippi State showed tremendous promise this year, was on the verge of winning possibly 10 games. Now, on the flip side of that, they were on the verge. They could have won 4 or 5 games if they don't come back against Auburn, or they lose that game late to Texas A&M. They don't come back against Louisiana Tech. They very easily could have lost those games too. So it goes both ways. I think Mississippi State needs to find its identity. They don't need to have the Mike Leach experience. They don't need to have losing the teams that you're supposed to beat and winning against teams you're not supposed to beat. They need to be somewhere in the middle. They need to be a team that wins the games they're supposed to and that can get the upsets against some of those teams. That's the difference between Mississippi State being a team that people consider a bit of a gimmick because they're running Mike Leach's offense, they're Mike Leach's program, and they're following the same line that he has kind of drawn over his 3 stops. They need to be Mississippi State. They need to be a contender in the SEC West. And for that to happen, they've got to fix some things in the offseason. And I can't really pinpoint what those things are. I think it's just a lack of execution a lot of times, a lack of consistency, and it's just doing the little things right. They didn't do the little things right this year enough to win 8 to 10 games. And next year's very important for Mississippi State. This was an improvement to go from 4-7 and an inept offense most of the time last year to being an offense that was very difficult to defend for even some really good defenses, and a team that got some upsets this year. They weren't supposed to beat Texas A&M on the road. They weren't supposed to beat Auburn on the road. They lost some games that they should have won, Memphis and LSU, and they should have beat Arkansas. But at the same time, I feel like they're very close, and I think that's something that State fans should be excited about, is that they're very close. Now, can they get over that hump next year? Can they beat Arkansas in that game? Can they get an upset? Can they go to LSU and win a ball game like they did Mike Leach's first year? They need to win those ball games. They need to figure out themselves, and they need to be an experienced team like they're supposed to be, with Will Rogers at quarterback and all these guys next year that have all this experience in year 3. So it's been a fun year. It's been an interesting year, and I think every year is going to be like that with Mike Leach. But I'm excited to see what happens with this team moving forward next year. A lot of guys return, and Mississippi State has a chance to be pretty good. It's up to them to get the job done, and we'll see what happens. So thank you guys for tuning into this. Again, please subscribe to my channel if you will, and leave some comments if you want to, and share this channel, share this video if you guys feel led to do that. I appreciate you guys always supporting our show, Thunder and Lightning and podcast, supporting our website at 247 Sports, supporting the Starkville Daily News. Thank you guys. Thanks everybody for reading my work and my coworkers' work and listening to our podcast. It means the world to me. It means the world to all of us, all of my coworkers that work with me. And I appreciate all of you guys and what you've done for me this year and what you'll continue to do for me. So I really appreciate that. But anyway, we're getting ready for basketball to really ramp up, and then baseball coming up. We'll continue to do these videos. We'll continue to to do our live chats and things like that. So make sure you stay tuned. We're going to have some fun content coming as the year goes on. So I hope you guys have a happy new year. We're only a couple days away from January 1 and starting a new year. I hope you guys are safe and healthy and happy. And I hope Mississippi State wins a lot of ball games in 2022. Maybe we can see another national championship. We'll see what happens. But appreciate you guys. I hope you guys have a great weekend and a great rest of the year. And we'll talk to you later.